So this is where you start figuring out what are the exact specific steps, goals, objectives we need to develop and implement to close the gap between those two things. Right. Um, and then we have F. F is for forge ahead. Now, I said earlier that companies often they assess before they set their North Star. There's another thing that companies often do. They often start doing stuff without knowing why they're doing it. They put together programs, they put together initiatives because they think they're supposed to be doing something. But you know what I'm saying, right? If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. That's what happens with Forge Ahead, right? People just start doing things, but they haven't determined why they're doing them, where they're trying to go with them, where it's trying to get them, how they measure for it. And so the F is now that I know where I'm trying to go, now that I know where I am in relation to that, and now that I've put together the strategies to close the gap, did I lose you? My computer, my computer went black and it probably went black as I mentioned a while ago. Uh, now we can actually start doing the work, which we put together in I, because in I, we figured out exactly what am I going to do to close the, now I can start doing the work. But if I start doing the work before I know those other three pieces, I'm just doing busy work, right? And we've all been in those spaces where we have something that we have to get done. We have to get it done right away. Well, why am I doing this? I don't know. The VP just said we need to do it. Right? We get stuck in that busy work. And so when it comes to culture, you really want to figure out, again, what is it you're trying to achieve and how do you achieve before you start? So that's what they,
That's great.
right. So the I is illustrating the path. That's where you actually figure out what exactly needs to happen. And F is the implementation of that.
I like it.
The T is for take a look around. Right. And so anytime you take a journey, and let's be clear, this work is a journey. This is not something that happens overnight, in a week, in a month. This is a journey. And so whenever you take a journey, when you think you've arrived, you want to just kind of take a look around and like, okay, I got here. I made it. Is it what I thought it was going to be? Do I really want to be here? Right? Is there somewhere else I want to go next? So the T is when you really reflect on, one, have I gotten to my North Star? Is it what I expected? What did I learn along the way? What else do I need to go back and grab hold of and bring along with me? And we have the opportunity to say, okay, this is great. I have achieved this. Can I expand on this? Can I make this bigger, broader? Or where do I want to go next? Now that I've gotten this done, what's the next thing I want to achieve? So that's what you achieve.
I like it. Do you find that many companies move from or just jump in at H and then they jump over to F?
Absolutely. Sorry. That's it.
Okay.
It wasn't going to be a cuss word. I promise it wasn't going to be a cuss word. But absolutely. Yes, they do. And I'm sorry. See, we said we're just on clock and that's what comes up. I'm sorry. You might need to edit that part out. But yes, they do. They do these assessments again, and they're assessing everything, right? And they get all this data back and they go, oh no, we have to fix this. Oh no, we have to do that. And so they just start doing stuff. But again, they haven't figured out why, if it's really important for them, right? And how to achieve it. And so that's when you get that busy work or that reactive doing. So yeah, they do H and they do F. And that's when we feel crazy. And that's when we feel misaligned. And that's when we feel disconnected because we don't know what the bigger opportunity is.
Right.
Yeah.
So, as leaders, what are some misconceptions that leaders have about shifting organizational culture?
I think the first and greatest misconception leaders have about organizational culture is that it's something that just happens, that just already exists, and they just need to figure out how to navigate. And the reason I say that's a huge misconception is because, again, what research shows is that leaders, a leadership team, has the ability to change and impact what the organizational culture. They're setting the culture, whether they know it or not, they're setting the culture. And so you want to be intentional about setting that culture. So the biggest misconception is that they think that they don't have the influence or the power or the control to change the culture. And I find it fascinating because oftentimes when you think about business leaders, they often have a master of the universe sense of their ability to impact sales, right? Or hit their quarterly earnings. They have this master of the universe sense of operations, but they don't apply that same sense of influence to culture. But yet they have a greater impact on the culture than anyone else. So I think that's the first greatest misconception that they have is that they think that they just have to navigate what already exists. I think the other misconception is similar to what I said before, that leaders have moved away from strategic and moved more towards tactical. Um, and I think they don't understand or recognize that their employees see that. Their employees know that. And we oftentimes as leaders, we think about motivating people financially, and that is important. But there's been a ton of research that shows that what really motivates people is meaningful work, that they're engaged in meaningful work and that they have an impact on that meaningful work. So part of being intentional about setting the organizational culture is also making sure that people understand the why, again, behind the organization, the why behind their work, the impact behind their work. They want to get paid and they want to get paid fairly. But they also want to have an impact. They want to make an impact on something that's meaningful for them. So when you're thinking about setting that culture, that's a critical thing that you need to consider and incorporate.
So, do you feel this shift from strategic to tactical happened during the pandemic, or was it before then, or when did?
Started happening long before then, but I think it really got solidified during the pandemic because it changed the entire way that we work, right? So all of a sudden we had to fix this problem. It's so fascinating too, because, employees had for years for flexibility in work and the ability to work remote. And because many of our managers and leaders have only really experienced being physically present with one another, right? And we kept saying, well, no, we can't really do that. But how do you still build spirit and team engagement? And how do you collaborate? So there were all these reasons that we have put in place as to why people could not work remote. And then we had to change overnight. We had to change that overnight. And so any strategic thinking, conversations, dialogues that we had been having turned very quickly to tactical. Tactical very quickly. How do we get people online? How do we get them the tools they need to still interact and engage with each other? Um, and so no, it's not a new phenomenon, but it feels stuck right now. It feels stuck.
Doesn't it? It really does.
And leaders know it, right? So when you start asking leaders questions that go beyond their sales goals and their operational efficiency. And you start asking them questions about the why do you do this? Why do you do it this way? Um, what innovation? What have you thought about this differently? Right. When it comes to things like AI and other kinds of technologies, they're like, yeah, of course we have. But when it comes to, again, this idea of culture, they haven't thought about it.